Hey everyone, I am Micha from DepositFix, in charge of customer success here. And today we will be joined by Tom Wengler, who is a former sales coach and trainer turned HubSpot partner. So Tom specializes in working with specific vertical markets. For example, economic development is one of his things. And today he'll be joining us to share more about amplifying your virtual presence in online Zoom meetings. So, Tom, good to have you, and take it away.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So, Tom Wengler, I'm located in Chattanooga, Tennessee, which is really a tier 3 city, right? So it's pretty small. We're fortunate, though, that we've got great internet connectivity. Now, I've been selling virtually for the last 2 or 3 years, but it really got amplified when the pandemic hit. And like most of us, I struggled with how do I get better at this whole thing, from virtual meetings to marketing videos. And, when I look back at my marketing videos on YouTube from 2 years ago, they were pretty terrible. I thought they were good at the time, but they were not good. So today we're going to be talking about virtual presence and how to amplify your presence, reinforce your brand, and how to be the expert in the room when you're in a Zoom meeting or one of those online sessions, right? So here's kind of the deal. When I graduated from college, a lot of people got graduation gifts. I did too. I got a pair of $100 dress shoes from my dad. And he said, if you're going to go into sales, you will be judged by the quality of your footwear. And that was true back in 1992. And to some degree, it probably is true today. Today, though, we're not judged by our footwear because nobody can really see your shoes very often. We are being judged by our virtual presence. And it has everything to do with how effective you are in your job, right? So we're all marketing, selling, coaching, consulting, more than likely from a home office. And, a lot of the folks on this call are probably operating very small companies. So the trick is, how do you look like a multi-million-dollar company every single time to everybody that you're engaging with? And if you can do that well, you're going to end up doing really great. So a little bit about me. I am a partner with HubSpot, and I have a stake in 2 other startup companies. One is automotive advertising technology, or working with auto dealers. Now, and what you're seeing here, so me on this screen with the background, is actually being accomplished using what we call a desk rig unit. So desk rig is a company. And, like a lot of you on this call, I've been involved in coaching and training. One of the things I did a few years out of school, I started I called it a company, but it really never got off the ground. But I developed a course called How to Succeed in College. And I didn't really know what I was doing, but I had a lot of enthusiasm, and the universe decided to kick my butt, and I lost pretty much everything I owned, which was fortunate that I didn't own a lot of stuff. So after that dream ended, I thought, what am I going to do? I really want to be a public speaker. So I ended up getting a job with Dale Carnegie Training, learned to sell, market, and do public speaking with those guys. I ended up working for a consulting firm in Denver, doing small business coaching and consulting. And then I started my own company doing that. So like you, I understand, being the David going against the Goliaths. And at that time, I was one of the first coaches probably in the country. Nobody had ever heard of it, especially not in Chattanooga, Tennessee. But, so I've learned a lot of lessons along the way. And I've sold a little bit of everything, from software to mechanical drive systems to speech recognition technology. And today it's mostly about what I'm doing with HubSpot. But enough about me. Let's talk about what virtual presence really is and how to create some magic. So when you go into a meeting or virtual meeting or a presentation, it's pretty interesting. A very small percentage, 7% of your first impressions are made by the words you use and what it is you're saying. Most of us think that that's the most important thing, right? The words. It's actually not. 38% of your impact comes from what you sound like. And that's why we recommend having a very high quality microphone, right? When you're in those meetings. That's far more important than what it is that you're saying. And then think about this. 55% is based on what you look like. So if what you look like is super important, which it obviously is, then you've really got to amplify that. So how do you do that? That comes down to having the right equipment. In this case, virtually, it is the right camera, lighting, microphone, of course, but also the green screen behind me, which is what you can't see, but I assure you it's there. Those are the main three elements that are going to make the biggest difference for you. So keep those statistics in mind when you're in these virtual meetings, whether it's for sales, videos, or even individual coaching or consulting calls. So, we spend endless hours doing all this research to build a presentation. And then we spend a lot of time working on the copy and then preparing a great PowerPoint deck and figuring out what the outcome is going to be. More important than that, show up in your uniform with your A game ready to go, right? So when I show up in a Zoom meeting, I might look like this. And you can see here, I'm using that what's called a lower third. It's a logo, name, and title, just like they use on TV, right? You know why they do that? It reinforces the brand and you stand out in these meetings. So take a look at this. This is what most Zoom meetings look like, right? You've got people with their cameras off. I've seen people where their head is cut off right in the middle. That's no good. We have distracting backgrounds. The gentleman right up here at the top with the books behind him. Do you know what people do when you have books behind you? They try to see what kind of books you're reading. When you have guitars, they're not paying attention to you. They're looking at your guitar. They're looking at your artwork, and it's distracting. The distracting backgrounds, all of those things, it's just not okay. It is not okay for you or anyone else really to present looking like that. You would never do that in a live sales call. So what we encourage people to do is, man, you got to find a way to stand out. So what I'm showing you here is there are 3 cards on this screen that are powerful. And it's these 2 right here and then mine. When you show up looking like that, you're going to be the best looking person in the room and at least the most professional. You may not be the best looking in real life, maybe like me, especially as I get older, but you want to show up looking really, really good so that you stand out. All right. So the benefits of doing this, right? We're going to increase your confidence. When you have the right equipment and the right approach, you know that you're going to show up confident and comfortable to these meetings. That right there, your confidence sells. We all know that. Your professionalism is amped up. Your audience get a rich experience. They really start to feel like they know you. In fact, I was on the call the other day with some guys that are at a company that's almost $1 billion in sales. They were doing a public presentation, right? There were 2,000 people on the call. Their CEO looked terrible. He had a cheesy Zoom background with all those funky shadows and just, I don't even know what to call it, but it was terrible. Can't do that stuff. All right. We also believe that no matter where you live, even if you're in a small city like Chattanooga, you ought to be able to compete with the big boys, right? So this increases your worth because you have more confidence and professionalism. You're going to sell more, close more, and people will perceive you being worth more based on what you look like and what you sound like, right? So those are really important reasons to do this stuff. This is just kind of an example of what these different setups look like. So what you're seeing here is 2 monitors, some lights, right? The correct lighting, and then also a high quality microphone. And then behind that is some software and a green screen. So what's cool is I'm actually doing this in the office above my garage. And if I were to remove my green screen, you would see a treadmill kind of workout machine and a staircase and a railing that's kind of outdated. It wouldn't look very good. So I'm not going to show that to you. All right. So here are the components that you really need in order to pull this off. So number 1, you got to have the right hardware. That's going to be your lights, camera, microphone, and a green screen. You want to have the right software. There's called streaming production software. Those are for the guys that really want to present at level 9 and 10. And then the last element is what we call the creative. So the backgrounds, overlays, animations, things like that. All right, so let's talk a little bit about your camera. This is the right kind of camera to use. This is a high quality camera. It has autofocus, things like that. It's not cheap. This is better than what comes with your laptop, and it's better than what comes maybe with a monitor, but we recommend that you throw those in the trash. They're just not that good, not for the level of quality that you want to present at. So if you're kind of watching this presentation and thinking, man, I'd kind of like to do what he's doing, you need one of those cameras. Number one, lighting. Off to the right, these things here, or I'm sorry, the one on the left, these are small little cameras. You can go find them online. They're great, but you have to have the right lighting. Without the right lighting, everything is going to fall apart. Your computer camera, the low-cost cameras I showed before, they demand a high level of lighting, and you can spend hours and days trying to get your lighting right. It's never going to be as good as if you use something like this. Microphone. We really recommend a high-quality microphone. If you can hear the sound in my voice, it's not that I'm a great speaker or anything like that. It's just picking up on those low tones, and it makes a huge difference. So clarity of communication. Microphone's a must-have. You can get these headsets, but you kind of look funny using this, quite honestly. And then a green screen. You want to get one of those. There's two different types. One you just strap on behind your chair. The other, it pulls up from the bottom of the floor or drop it down from the top of your ceiling. All right, now there's something called live streaming video software. Those leverage what we call a virtual camera. You can do some research on those. But the creative is really kind of the big part. Again, that lower third right there, name, brand, logo. Think about it this way. You spend a lot of money on marketing to get leads, and then you show up and that is gone, right? You want to bring your brand into the presentation. So that right there is super important. By the way, for me to do that little lower third or logo on and off, I'm using what's called a stream deck, and I'm pushing one little button to make that happen. I push another button and it does a little spinning thing like you saw there of the logo. And now it's big me and then back to mini me. These are little things that we program into the creative to give a better experience. So what we want to do is go from a terrible background like that, right? So you got to have all the elements. So great look here, but the background's messy. So we want to use the green screen and project a custom background. Now, if you don't do the creative, there's some other things that you can do to take care of this. And I'm going to walk you through those right now. Rule number one, though, use a green screen. At the very least, just get a green screen and you'll have a green background behind you, and that'll look better than nothing. Number two, if you can't do that, find a flat colored wall. It's not as good as a green screen, but at least it's a clean focus. You don't want to have a lot of distracting elements behind you. A plain background is best. Reduce those distracting elements, right? The cat, the dog, the sports gear, the photographs, flowers, plants, all those things, books especially, very, very distracting. We want to eliminate those. All right, less is not more. You really want to make an investment in the hardware, right? Because that does make a difference. Your cameras are going to need as much light as possible. At one point, I thought about building a studio in my home office to be able to accomplish this. I couldn't find anybody to do it, quite honestly. Lighting. If your lighting's off, never going to look right. So you got to be really strategic about light placement. Book lights don't work. You got to get these high quality mini LED lights in order to pull it off. All right. You want to align your chin with the camera, right? So that camera should be pointing right at your chin. And then ideally from the top of your screen, you want to have 1 to 2 inches of headspace. That's how we fill up what's called the composition. And then also you want to look straight at the camera as much as possible. I'm still working on doing that better every time. It's not as easy when you're looking at a PowerPoint and the camera's just 2 degrees above that, but that's something to always keep in mind, is try and really look at that camera. It takes practice, but you'll get used to it. All right. Your computer microphone, it's garbage. Don't even try to use it. You've got to upgrade your microphone, if nothing else. Don't use headsets. You just look strange. You look weird. You don't want to be that guy. And then audio quality, again, super, super important. Really amplify the audio quality. So a couple of use cases here, and I'll just kind of get into these. For your first impression, right? Everything starts there. If you want to get to that next round in sales, or if you want to go from lead to a deep sales engagement, this tech and the ability to do this is going to help you make that good, solid first impression. More than likely, your sales have a cycle, meaning you're going to be meeting with people for a little while in order to get the deal done. You want to consistently show up with the same brand, image, high quality presence. That's going to make a difference because it builds trust over time. You're going to look better than your client, and they're going to want to emulate you. They're going to want to be you. So as the coach or the instructor, you want to be able to use that. By the way, if you're creating marketing videos or courses or course content, don't just show like a screenshot. You want to put yourself in the picture. You know, a public speaker would never show up to an auditorium and say, I'm going to sit down with the audience and I'm just going to drive the PowerPoint from here. You would never do that. You always stand in front of the audience, look at everybody, and the PowerPoint's behind you. Same thing with marketing presentations or videos or product demos or tours like that. Put yourself in the picture. Coaching and consulting. You got to show up as the leader at a level 10. That's going to, again, build trust and credibility. And the last one, if you're doing sales, closing, presentations, anything like that, or even internal communications, if you're at a large company, you want to look like the leader. So virtual presence is how you do that. So just simply encourage you to be very mindful of your presence and really take the right steps to amplify it. It's going to cost you some money and it's going to cost you a little bit of time and effort, but you can get there. If I can get there, you can get there. Now, I'll tell you that this was accomplished using something from deskrig.com. So if you are thinking, I'd like to do what he's doing, then go to deskrig.com. You can check it out there. With that, any questions? And guys, thanks for having me. I feel like I've done all the talking, probably because I have.
So coming from a video production background, I can confirm that everything you said is very, very true. Just the fact that all these things are also working on a subliminal level, right? It sounds like it's very important to get all of the details right. And people might not even notice what's working about the whole setup and how you look and how you establish that presence. But in your experience then, how are you treated differently compared to when you don't take care of all these small details that will build the virtual presence?
You know, it's if you've ever put on a really nice suit, right? You feel differently. Or for the women out there, if you put on a beautiful dress, you feel differently, you have different energy, and you project that because your confidence goes through the roof. That right there makes a huge difference. So it's not maybe something you can quantify, but I can tell you this, when I get in a meeting with pretty high-powered people, I never get the sense that they're thinking, who is this guy? You know, is he for real? So there's a lot of things that we can do that throw things off, right? So if I throw up a coffee cup, you're probably judging that coffee cup. You're like, why does this guy have a skull on his coffee cup? And it's because it's my 14-year-old son's and I use it as a prop, right? So it makes sense for a 14-year-old to have a prop or for a cup with a skull on it, I guess. But it comes down to confidence and it comes down to presence. So quite honestly, I know that every meeting I go into, I'm going to be the best. I'm going to present at the highest professional level. And I'll tell you, you're presenting at a very high level yourself. So I can tell that you've got a great microphone and you've taken the time to put on you're using a high quality camera and the right background. Yeah. And those lapel mics are great, but I can tell that you've taken the time to say, you know what, if I'm going to run this company and I'm going to be on Zoom meetings all the time, I'm going to do it right.
Thanks for noticing. And yeah, spot on. Also, I'm curious, since most people aren't from a technical background, so they haven't worked with lighting, with microphones, and you sort of suggested that they can do a little bit of experimenting, but that still might sound intimidating to some people. So do you have any resources where you could point somebody to on how to set up lighting, or where could they turn for more information?
That is part of the challenge, right? So what Desk Rig is, they demystify that whole process. So what I've got in front of me are 3 monitors, one in the middle and 2 to the right. My main monitor is on a stand. On that stand are 2 lights that come off through 2 little cables. And all I do is I just adjust, you probably can't see it, but I'm just adjusting those lights right here. So those are the only 2 lights that I ever use. I have a total of 4, but I consistently use the top 2. The microphone, it's right here. It's called the Blue Snowball. And I know it's just right there, right? I mean, it's just once you put it into a spot and listen to yourself a few times, you're like, yep, that's working. And it works great. But I'll tell you, I had this up and running within 2 or 3 hours, and a little bit of practice, I was good to go. But the camera even auto focuses. So once it's set up, you don't really ever have to worry about it again.
Yeah, sometimes it's more of a set it and forget it type thing, just getting over that initial resistance of, oh, should I do this? But I think, Tom, you've offered very compelling reasons why people should do this to amplify their presence. So
thank you.
I guess any closing thoughts here before we wrap up?
I'll just tell you this. I feel better about my business and the ability to close. Even though I may be David going against Goliath, it doesn't bother me anymore. I show up with a rock, and David showing up, or what is it? Goliath just shows up. Yeah,
with a garage in the background, or
unbelievable.
Those line, yeah.
Sales reps and executives at really big companies look terrible. And I honestly, I look at those companies differently. I'm like, man, really? That's what you're bringing to the table here? Not good. So it's no wonder that, a lot of people are suffering from sales is just because they're not showing up ready to play.
Yep.
And I hope it does. Great. And if you want to take it to that next level, then you can find us at desk. You can call the guys at deskrig.com and go from there.
Sounds good.
All right.
Well, great. It was good having you, Tom.
Thanks a lot, Tom.
It was great having you, Tom.
You too. Bye.